A Nefarious Nightmare contains themes that may be explicit or triggering for some. Specific warnings and disclaimers will be mentioned in the show notes. A Nefarious Nightmare assumes all parties that are mentioned in these cases to be innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to Season 4.
Karen Bodine was 37 when she was subjected to a brutal attack resulting in bruises and cuts to her body and a ligature mark around her neck. The perpetrators responsible for her death have yet to be apprehended and sadly are still at large.
We want to continue to amplify awareness on this case because at the very least, her daughter Karlee, as well as any other family members, need to see justice and obtain closure. With that, I'm Courtney Fenner.
And I'm Amanda Cronin, and A Nefarious Nightmare presents Little Notes, Justice for Karen Bodine.
On January 21st, 2007, Karen was walking around Lacey, Washington when a neighbor called the police. Despite the cold weather, Karen was not wearing a winter coat. When the police arrived, Karen insisted that she was fine and brushed them off. She was staying with a friend at the time, having left her parents' home after a domestic incident with her boyfriend, which resulted in a protection order. Karen was staying with a friend who had several house guests known to use drugs. Witnesses reported seeing Karen leave the house on foot around 3 a.m. Unfortunately, this was the last time Karen was seen alive.
On January 22nd at 8:45 a.m., a car passing by called 911 after mistaking Karen's remains for a mannequin. Karen's body was discovered at the entrance of a gravel pit on Little Rock Road in Rochester, Washington, which was about 30 miles away from her house. She was found in an unnatural position and there were no signs of sexual assault. Her head was propped up on a discarded car seat, mimicking a pillow. The detectives primarily believed that someone had dumped the body there after dark the night before and suspected that she had died not long before. Karen's belongings were not found at the scene.
The witness reported seeing a small, brown, early 1980s Datsun with a lighter color camper shell around 7:50 a.m. at the gravel road entrance. Investigators determined that Karen was strangled and left in a position that would suggest the murderer posed her in this way to get attention from whoever found her.
Karen was found completely nude with a ligature mark around her neck. Multiple DNA profiles were found on the ligature and sent for testing. The results have not been shared yet to this day. Law enforcement is hoping for advancements in DNA technology to provide answers. The detective in charge of the case believes that more than one person was involved due to the lack of evidence and the length of the investigation.
Karen was a beloved mother of 3 who was the center of her friends' lives. She was known for her passion, creativity, and occasional quirkiness, which her friends affectionately joked about. Karen had a habit of leaving little notes for her loved ones, expressing her love in creative ways. Despite facing difficult times, Karen remained full of life. However, her sudden death in January 2007 was unfathomable to those who knew her. Karlee, her daughter, remembers the last time she saw her mother when Karen asked her to stay for 5 more minutes. Sadly, that was the last time they spoke before Karen's passing. Karlee recalls the strange feeling of attending her mother's funeral before graduating high school.
Sharon, Karen's mother, has expressed that the pain of her daughter's murder is difficult to express in words. She describes it as a cloud that hangs over her every day, making it hard to enjoy even the most beautiful moments. Karen's murder is always on their minds, making it challenging to have pure moments of joy. Karlee, Karen's daughter, wishes for closure in the case so she could properly grieve her mother and remember her for the vibrant person that she was rather than her last moments. Karlee believes her mother deserves to be remembered for her life and not for her death.
Karen spent her childhood in a small town in Washington where her parents built their dream home on a 10-acre lot. In high school, Karen was well-liked and belonged to several different cliques. She had a talent for making friends and was known for lighting up the room whenever she walked in. She had a genuine and beautiful laugh with different variations and the occasional snort when she laughed hard. She had a talent for bringing people together, although she did have her few enemies, quote unquote, that were not a serious issue. Her stubbornness and ability to stand her ground brought joy to both her family and friends.
Karen and Danny had 3 children together, named Taylor, Tanner, and Karlee. Their relationship was marked by struggles with addiction, leading to an on and off again dynamic. Eventually, Karen's mother took custody of the children who were later adopted by her. Karlee and her mother had a rocky relationship due to addiction. Despite this, her mother was present for the majority of Karlee's childhood. She attended her children's sports games, baked cookies with them, and enjoyed watching movies together. Her purse was always stocked with gum and lipstick, and her children favored the gum, but Karlee loved to put on her mother's lipstick. There were times that she wouldn't be able to find a ride to one of their games, so she would walk up to 7 miles to get there.
Karen had a quote-unquote passion for fashion and was skilled in cooking and sewing. She had the ability to create her own clothing and enjoyed being a mother most of all. During her unfortunate drug binges, she would carry around a baby doll and care for it like it were her own kid, ensuring it was warm and had a bottle. Despite her struggles, her nurturing spirit from her love for animals as a young girl to a mother never left her. Love and affection were essential for her, both to give and to receive.
Karen worked in the cafeteria of her children's school. She did this so she could see her kids every day. Karen had a habit of giving her children extra chicken nuggets during lunchtime as a bonus. Karen's mother had adopted her children and had been the primary caregiver for them. However, when Karen was sober and in recovery, she would willingly give up her parental rights to allow Karen to take care of her own kids, most of the time with Karen living with her parents and kids when she was sober. Karen and her mother had their fair share of fights, as is common between mothers and daughters, but nothing too serious. Despite this, they genuinely got along well and made it seem like a normal mother-daughter relationship. Eventually, Karen made the decision to permanently separate from Danny.
Karen started dating Kevin, and their relationship lasted for a few years with some breaks in between. In 2006, Karen moved in with Kevin after living with her parents and 3 children. Although she was sober for a few months, Karen relapsed soon after. Karlee sadly recalls that the last time she saw her mother, Karen, she believes it was after school when they last met. Karen asked Karlee to stay for 5 more minutes, which turned out to be one of the last things that she ever said to her daughter. As a teenager, it's common for friends and boyfriends to become a top priority over spending time with family. However, Karlee can't help but feel guilty about it. While it's normal to prioritize social relationships during this stage of life, it's important to remember that the value of family and make time for them as well.
On Friday, January 19th, 2007, Karen and Kevin had an argument that escalated to a physical altercation. As a result, Karen was asked to leave the residence and a no-contact order was issued. Karen then went to a friend of hers, Jim Hunt's house, where she stayed temporarily. Karen knew Jim and his friends that hung out there well because she had spent time with them while they played music together with Kevin. It is possible that Karen felt too embarrassed to call her mom for help and instead turned to a friend for assistance. She felt comfortable enough there. She was close to her and Kevin's house, but far enough away to give them distance.
There was a significant amount of drug use at Jim's house over the weekend, with a constant flow of people coming in and out. When Karen arrived, she spent an extended period of time in the bathroom, causing frustration among the other people there. And as a result, Jim asked Karen to leave the house for a little while.
After Jim asked Karen to leave for a while, she was seen walking around the neighborhood. Shortly after, someone called the police. She was visibly upset as she walked close by Jim's house during the late afternoon. Despite the darkness, it was not yet nighttime. She was not dressed appropriately for the weather, and someone called the police out of concern for her well-being. It was cold outside, and no one should have been walking the neighborhood like she was. The police officers eventually approached Karen and offered to take her home, but she declined their offer, stating that she didn't want to go back to her mom's house. Despite the cops' repeated attempts to help her, she refused and they eventually left her alone. It is so very unfortunate that Karen declined assistance, as the police could have potentially provided her with resources, such as a women's shelter or a safe place to stay at least, and ultimately, maybe even save her life.
Karen eventually returned to Jim's house that evening and stayed the night. The following day, on Sunday, January 21st, a Lacey police officer saw Karen walking and asked if she needed assistance. Karen declined, stating that she was walking home, and the officer left her alone. Other people did say that the last time that they saw Karen was the night before at Jim's house.
Karen's body was discovered on Monday, January 22nd, just after daybreak, approximately 15 feet from a gravel road. This location has a reputation for being a dumping ground. It has been used as a spot to discard various items of waste, such as cars, hazardous materials, etc., stuff like that. The location was situated behind a trash dump, and the area experienced a significant amount of traffic passing through it. Also, it is a tragic fact that Karen's parents drove by the scene of the incident that morning, completely unaware that their daughter was even involved. They were not supposed to be in the area at that time. Dave, Karen's father, had an appointment and usually took the freeway. However, that morning he asked Sharon, his wife, to accompany him, and she had preferred to take the more scenic route and down the old roads.
Now, Dave, a seasoned firefighter in the area, observed the large number of officers at the scene and expressed his concern to Sharon that the outcome was unlikely to be a good one. That evening, officers arrived at Dave and Sharon's home to inform them of Karen's passing.
It appears that there was a lack of investigation in the early stages of this case. Based on the available information, there doesn't seem to have been much effort to put into this investigation. The news articles regarding the death of Karen failed to even mention her name in the initial reports, both in newspapers and online articles, and even referred to her as a quote-unquote homeless prostitute. And to add to the already distressed family was learning that Karen's mugshot was used instead of reaching out to her family for a photo. This has caused a great deal of pain for her loved ones. Karen's family acknowledges that she was not without flaws, but they loved her nonetheless, and she was a human being deserving of love and respect.
It is worth noting that law enforcement officials possess a significant amount of evidence related to the case at hand. Despite this, they have chosen not to disclose this information to the public, nor have they provided any explanation for their decision. This could be due to them knowing more than they are leading on to, and that might mean some justice for Karen and her family one day. After the incident, even only a limited number of witness statements were made available.
2 descriptions of a truck were reported in the dumping area just an hour before Karen's body was discovered. The descriptions were similar to each other, and Karlee has put forward 2 theories regarding the incident. The first theory suggests that it could have been a case of mistaken identity, where people may have thought it was the same truck when it was not. The second theory proposes that it could have been 2 different trucks that people saw, and they just assumed that it was the same truck.
The car in question was a Datsun model from the late 1980s or early 1990s. Its color was a distinct shade of brown, and some say that it resembled the color of feces more than a lighter tan. It's possible that it was a dark orange but covered in mud. Some people say that it appeared to be a smaller truck with a lighter colored camper shell. During her last weekend, Karen spent time with someone who owned a brown Datsun car. It is unclear whether this was a coincidence or not.
It is evident from any account of this case that no investigation was conducted following the discovery of Karen's body. It's just sickening. Karlee had trouble getting in touch with a detective assigned to Karen's case, Steve Hamilton. He was frequently unavailable due to his retirement activities, such as golfing and fishing. Despite her attempts to reach him, he never returned her calls. And a few years after Karen's death, Karlee was stopped by Steve Hamilton during a traffic stop. Upon realizing her last name, he asked if she had ever been arrested by him previously. She reminded him that he had worked her mother's case, and he pretty quickly issued her a warning and allowed her to leave.
Now, Karen's case is a rare occurrence in their small county. According to the records from 2019, there were only 30 unsolved cases related to homicides, missing persons, or suspected homicides. It's unclear whether Steve's forgetfulness about Karen was due to a poor memory or simply a lack of concern. Regardless, the reason behind it remains unknown.
Karlee believes that Karen may have overestimated the level of friendship she had with those people at Jim's house during the last weekend of her life. If Karen had known that one of them could have potentially harmed her, she would not have associated with them or gone to Jim's house. According to the early articles on Karen's case, authorities have suggested that there may be individuals with more information regarding her death that has actually been made public.
In 2014, 7 years after Karen's death, the county announced their intention to reopen the case. After conducting re-interviews, several new individuals came forward with valuable information. Now, it is important to note that witnesses in these types of cases often hesitate to speak with law enforcement due to being involved with drugs. So in 2019, Mickey Hamilton, the son of Steve Hamilton, unofficially took over the case. The case heated up quickly, and Karen's family has come to the conclusion that Mickey was instrumental in seeing the case gain some new light.
Thanks to Mickey Hamilton's efforts, Karen's case gained more relevance and was featured at the Crime Con Crowd Solve event in 2019. The Crowd Solve event is where participants pay to discuss cases in details with each other. Each participant receives a case file to review, and with the assistance of police, they discuss theories and ask questions, and sometimes they really do help law enforcement with their ideas or theories. It's a really popular event, and even Selena Gomez was there to participate one year.
Karen's case was not meant to be presented initially. It was supposed to be Nancy Moyer's case, which also belonged to Officer Mickey Hamilton. Just before the event, new evidence was found in the Nancy Moyer case. Unfortunately, this information would not be shared with the public, let alone given to a stranger. As a result, Nancy's case was removed from the event and replaced by Karen's case. During the event, Karen's case was a topic of discussion for 2 out of 3 days. Such events can be difficult and traumatic for individuals. Karen's family was initially scared of the event, but they were willing to do anything to find answers, and who can blame them? Despite some challenges, they found the experience therapeutic and empowering. By the end, they had a stronger voice in the case, and they felt like that they could make a difference.
Karen's family had received no help or support prior to the Crowd Solve event. No one had organized a vigil for her, made flyers, or shown any concern for helping her in her case. Karen's life and death were of greater concern to strangers than to her own local police officers or her supposed friends. Despite living in a community where she had established relationships, it was the kindness of strangers that proved to be the most impactful. At the event, Karen's murder case gained significant attention from many people. However, all attendees were required to sign a non-disclosure agreement, preventing them from discussing certain details of the case with the public after the event.
According to Mickey Hamilton, Karen's case file now contains over 1,000 pages. However, they will not be released anytime soon. The police have DNA evidence and sufficient funding for the case. CrimeCon offered to pay for any testing required, but the police denied it, citing fairness concerns for other cases.
It is worth noting that DNA related to this case in questions remains untested to this day. Additionally, the car seat discovered under the head of Karen was never tested or put into evidence. Surprisingly, the authorities did not take anything that Karen's body was touching into evidence. It is currently unclear why the DNA has not been tested or why the offered funding is not being utilized, but further information on these matters has yet to be provided.
The family is hopeful that they will be able to resolve some outstanding issues soon. However, they require more individuals with knowledge of the situation to come forward. It would be greatly appreciated if those individuals would overcome any fears they may have and provide the necessary information. There are still some details in the timeline that need to be revealed. The current situation is heavily dependent on circumstances and the need for concrete answers before any prosecution can proceed.
Karlee has made it her life's work to solve her mother's murder. She has funded billboards and created merchandise to raise money for the investigation. Her dedication to finding answers is unwavering. Karen's murder has left a lasting impact on her family. The pain and sadness they feel affects them every day. The killer's actions didn't just take Karen's life, but essentially destroyed an entire family. The loss of a loved one is never easy, but the way in which Karen was taken from this world has left such a deep emotional scar that will never truly be healed.
Karen's murder was a senseless and tragic event that could have been avoided. It is imperative that this case receives more attention and is solved as soon as possible. The mishandling of Karen's case by the police and the media's dissemination of false information caused significant harm to both her case and her family.
Before we wrap up today's episode, just a friendly reminder that we will be at the 2023 True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival in Austin, Texas, August 25th through 27th. Come see us. But there will be a great amount of people there, and you do not want to miss it. It's a blast, and you get to be around advocates, true crime content creators, and many different super cool vendors. Tickets are for sale at truecrimepodcastfestival.com, and we will have stuff to give away. Be sure to use the codes BEES, B-E-E-S, for a discount at checkout.
Also, please don't forget to join our Patreon for bonus content, such as our Not So Nefarious Criminals podcast. We talk about the lighter side of crime, such as the Florida Man. And you also get to hear archived content that we chose to take off the public feed, plus Amanda's new thing, whatever that is these days. But yeah, go join the Patreon, I think. Yeah, starting at just $3 a month. Just $3. Come on, guys, $3. You can do it. I believe in you.
Karen Bodine was a bee. She was taken away from everyone who loved her, and whoever the perpetrator is that's still at large is due some justice. We want to see Karlee and her family get closure. Like all bees, Karen and her family are strong, resilient, yet vulnerable. We must protect the bees at all costs. For without bees, we, as a human race, are doomed. So be vigilant, for when you mess with the bees,
you get the hive.
Thank you for listening to A Nefarious Nightmare. Music used in the theme was originally recorded by Ghost Stories Incorporated, remixed by Ryan RCX Murphy. Additional background music is provided by Epidemic Sound. A Nefarious Nightmare is scripted, researched, and produced by Courtney Finner and Amanda Cronin. This podcast is a Cloud 10 podcast managed by Sim Sarna, Sahiba Krieger, and Jamie Rice of Murderish and Dirty Money Moves. You can help us grow our show by leaving us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Or you can join our Patreon for lighthearted bonus content. Thank you, and as always, be vigilant.